Okay, I am live. This new live messenger, I try to get on here a little bit early to make sure everything is working. When you jump on, I'm going to wait a couple of minutes this last minute, but when you do jump on, make sure you put where you're from. If you're watching the replay, and I can't see on this new live producer often who is on or when they're on. So make sure that you also use the chat button, which I can kind of keep tabs on, and also that you ask questions or concerns. And if I don't get to them in the live, then I will get to them at the end or later. I will open up some questions at the end that I can try to just do live. But I understand everyone's time is limited, and sometimes you can catch part of it and you can't catch the whole thing. So I'm going to wait and see if some people that said they could come could jump on with me. Again, I know I see like 3 people, but I can never see who they are. So if you are on with me, please put something, say hi, tell me what state you're in. This also helps me for guidance later on because every state is different with their homeschool standards. So, yes, I am excited to share though. I just want to share a little bit about me. My background is that I was formerly taught in general education and then in special education. Then I chose to go to create a learning center, and then I was asked by a family to privately homeschool as we traveled around the world. So I got to teach on location in many different countries and teach history there, which was so amazing. And then I got to see the depth of what homeschool offers from a different perspective. Like when I was teaching, I was like, there's no way I'll homeschool. Like I just didn't understand it as much. And then I was then asked by several families post that knew my family to set up their curriculum for their families. So I homeschooled them through middle school, and then they went into high school, and they went into more of an online program than having a teacher. And then I had my son, and so I knew right away I was going to homeschool. Like there wasn't any kind of determining factors. I just knew this was going to be my course. So I am certainly not an expert, but I do have some expertise, and I do have some, obviously, some depth in this subject. So I know right now there's a lot of anxiety around this, and so I want you to trust me in this process. I'm going to go through 7 steps, but first I'm going to have you do a little bit of grounding and breath work. I don't want you to focus on taking notes during this time. I want you to focus on being an active listener, because I do provide a PDF of everything I'm going through with links, with all the stuff done for you. So this could be really easy. So I just want you to actively listen and be open to what I'm suggesting in these 7 tips. And also, I just think if we're not trying to busily write notes or distracted by things, that we can then intake more. So I want you to kind of just take some time. If you're in a place you can be outside, be outside. If you're at work, I understand you're kind of like splicing into this, but to take some breath work with me. So we're going to breathe in through our nose and out through our nose. Okay, I'm going to be talking, so I can't do that. So I just want you to breathe in, close your eyes, and breathe out, and just calm your body and really ground yourself. This is a really volatile time in our history that none of us was prepared for. But I want to take you back to a place as you're breathing in and out of when you first held your child. Like that moment that your partner, the doctor, whomever gave you your child, you were freaked out, right? I was like so happy, but also like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like, how am I going to do this? How am I equipped to do this? And it was scary, like very scary. But you know what I did? I did it, right? I learned all the things, and we learned to communicate with each other, and it was natural and it was innate. And when I didn't know, I went to my mom or a friend or, a health provider or whatever. So I created a team around that, but I also just knew. And then I was there when they were crawling and learning their colors and taking their steps. And you are always their first teacher. You have always been a guide or a teacher. You didn't just switch on and switch off when you maybe have sent your kids to school in the past and making the decision now whether you're going to do it again. You didn't just like, I'm done, right? You didn't just send them to an institution and be like, that's done for now. I'm no longer teaching them. I'm no longer a part of that whole world. And so this is to give you encouragement that you were the first teacher. You know your child better than anyone on the planet, and that you have this innate power inside. And, last spring, as I was preparing for this, I got to thinking that, it was forced. All of us were forced into a situation we had no experience in. Teachers in the general schools were forced to go online with just like that, a click. You were forced to bring your child back home and just start teaching them or supporting the teacher that was doing distance learning. It was forced. But now as we move into fall, we get to bring our power back. We get to be empowered and be like, this is a choice. And so there's going to be a lot of different options. I know our school district here just came out with their letter of what the options are. And most schools are going to provide a distance learning option. Usually they have to, like by Hawaii state law, they have to. And so some schools are going to tell you they don't, but you need to look into your laws. And that's going to be my first, step to success when we get to that. So, but there's going to be an option for an online programming, and I know the one that they've picked here, and I do like it. So there is that, but they're still going to be home in this hybrid model for many of you in your schools to start the year. So there's still parts of this other channel of homeschooling that I'm going to go into that you're going to need to know. You can't just now all of a sudden in the situation we are and where we are in the climate of our world be like, well, that's just my choice and I'm done. You're going to need to have plan A, B, C, and some depth behind that. So then you're not acting in a reactive state, you're acting in a proactive state. And I talk about this in health. I've always been teacher or guide. Does that make sense? Like I've never, just because I've gone into health coaching, I used to coach in high school. All of these things and components are me guiding or teaching or sharing knowledge and then letting the child go with that and seeing what they grasp. So I just want to remind you that you're not there to like regurgitate information to them. You don't need to know everything. In fact, I never know everything. And each grade I taught, I had to be a student of that grade, a student of that curriculum, a student of those things. And each class I got was completely different dynamics. And I had to be a student of them. The good news is you already know your students. You are a student of your child. You already know how they click, how they work. You've probably seen if they're hands-on, if they're auditory, how they do better learning things from a very early age and already know that. And so those are things that you get as gifts to yourself when you bring this into your home or when you're sharing this space with them again. So you need to find out from your school exactly what they're doing, and then you need to use your intuition and you need to really create a list of what your priorities are and why you're doing it. It is very difficult for a student in the younger grades to be online learning all the time. They really do need a guide and they really do need a person to share these things with and to go through motions with. As they get older, I think that they have obviously matured, just as we know, and they want that independence and they're fighting us for that independence. And those online options are wonderful, and there's still a teacher attached to many of them or a group of students that they can collaborate with. So those are things to think of too when you look at the curriculum list that I provide for you, kind of your age, how your child works, and so forth. So the first thing that you need to do, step one, for your tips for success is you need to know your laws. I put a link in the PDF that goes straight to your state laws. You click on your state, it tells you exactly what you need because each state is different. Some states you have to have a curriculum attached to standards, some states you don't, some states you have to have testing at certain grades. Usually it's typically around the third grade they have to take a national test or they have to come in and have someone evaluate if they're up to standards. But it will framework that for you. But you need to go and research that, and then you'll figure out exactly what's going to go down the list of these other things. So that's the priority, is to do some research there if you haven't done it already. So that's the first tip. If you're just new to all this, there's also a membership to the Homeschool Defense and Legal Association. And if you have a child that has an IEP, for instance, or if you plan to do this long term, I suggest getting that membership just because laws change and to have representation. But it's important to look for that first. So that's number one. Number two is how to inform your school that you're going to either enroll or you're going to take them out of the public system. And that's an intent letter, or there is a form like here, there's a 4140. And so you need to fill that out. It's very simple, but my suggestion is that you need to mail it certified mail, or go in and get the signature right away and have it as a copy. That was my mistake my first round, is I just sent it in. I did not understand, so then I had to send another one because I never got it back. And it's pretty common because when you're not funding that particular school, it's not as much of a concern to them, and sometimes that paperwork gets lost. And so I want you to think about like that, make sure that you get it certified. Okay, so that's number two. So laws first, your intent letter. Second, which curriculum fits your family. And this is where it gets, it's overwhelming at times. I have listed some of my favorites, okay? I'm going to share what we use too, but you also right now, especially if your child's been in school and you're transitioning to homeschool, you want to get them involved. You want them to look with you at these. You want them to feel excited, okay? We don't want them to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to be home. I hate this. This is a forced thing either. Like, that's your job as a parent and as they're, fighting for them to be like, this is exciting. We get this opportunity together. And we're doing this one maybe to keep you safe too, because what your school district is offering, won't meet your child and help them progress. Okay. Number three, that you yourself are in an occupation that you can't be worried if COVID's going to come and go and you're going to quarantine and you're not going to quarantine, and that rhythm just won't work. They'll cause more anxiety for you as a family unit and for your child. And so there's many things that you have to consider in this all. But when it's time to look at those curriculums, you need to have their buy-in. We sit with Jonas and Hazel and I ask them, because especially with science and social studies, those are repetitive subjects each year. And you can look at the Common Core standards for any state and say what the standard is and what they're going to study. But you're going to study geology and biology and botany and all these things. Like, a kid's going to learn to grow a seed in kindergarten, and then they're going to revisit that, and they're going to do maybe an ecosystem in fourth grade and still grow a seed, right? So you're not going to have to teach them all the things all at once. And if they're really into astronomy, then go to astronomy. If they're really into creating a garden, go with that botany class and investigate that, okay? If you, like we did marine biology here, perfect place. We have whales, we have dolphins, we have tide pools to go do and look at, okay? If you're in a forest area, you're going to study maybe that landscape and make it your first choice, that choice that makes it easier for you and also something that they can real world apply to. So, don't stress over those things as much as your math and reading curriculum, I think, are like the juice, the hub, right? And especially reading and writing. So we always have, at least in our home, an hour of reading and an hour of writing booked out. Not as much an hour for like Hazel or whatever, but we sit and she can color pictures and write words and stuff, because I think the stronger writer is the stronger reader, and vice versa. They go together. I've always practiced that in my classrooms, but we do fun writers workshops and we write to families and we do stories, or we go on adventures and then write about it. It doesn't have to be, we're going to do persuasive writing right now, okay? So you have to understand that you can think outside the box, but providing these windows makes it fun and exciting for them. And it's something that you feel a grasp of. And you're always learning. And so it's okay to say, I don't know. Let's look for this answer and provide that. So the curriculum we're using right now is the Good and the Beautiful for both our math and our language. I started out with Sonulite, which is a full package deal, and it's accredited. And I'll put on this list, it will share whether it's accredited or not. And accredited really doesn't function as something that is a priority until you're getting to high school. And then if you want them to have a high school diploma instead of a GED, then you're going to look for those accredited programs. And again, I'm not going to list them all because they're on that PDF, so they'll be available to you. So you are going to want to, figure out that there's some that have Common Core and some that don't. Again, Common Core was just implemented recently. Most of you probably dislike it. I dislike it even as a teacher. I've, dabbled into it with Jonas so he has a grasp of it, but he's like, that doesn't make any sense to him. And it doesn't in a lot of ways. If that's your main concern, you can splice in programs that have Common Core. Acellus has Common Core, and certain places have Common Core. And then you could, take other things in and out. But at the gist of it, when you go to college, you're not using Common Core. In your real life, you're not using Common Core, and kids are resilient. And so if your homeschool, if it's beating your head against a wall to teach them Common Core, don't make that the only deciding point for what you're going to pick for your homeschool. Okay. If you decide to enroll them and then they have distance learning and you want to add some things in, that's the plan B too. So keep with that list. There might be some things. There's some wonderful free resources. There's some wonderful holistic. There's some wonderful like full package. Like I said, Sunlight and Timberdoodle. We did Timberdoodle last year. And then I started mixing and matching things in. And then we moved towards the good and the beautiful. We've done Gather Round Homeschool, which is cross-curricular. So we've done units this summer with that. And we also homeschool year round, and I'll get to that. So that's number 3. You need to find the curriculum that fits, and you need to get student buy-in. That's very important. So you want to like really reemphasize, we're not trying to avoid things, we're trying to add things. We're trying to make this fun for our children. We're not avoiding going to school. We're choosing to do this in our home now. The style of your homeschool and scheduling blocks. This is probably the hardest. I put it in the middle to figure out, especially with working parents, even for me staying home and finding your rhythm, and it's going to change. But some things I want you to think about is that your time is bendable and flexible. And I want you to kind of repeat that your time is bendable and flexible. Time was created. Time at one point, man created it, wasn't a thing. Right? And so when you put your mindset towards it's flexible and bendable, you'll start seeing there's actionable places throughout your day that you can be teaching, and that teaching takes place throughout the day. Just because your kids went to school before from 8 to 2:30 or whatever the schedule was, 3, doesn't mean they weren't learning outside of school or on the weekends with you. Like, learning is happening for these inquisitive minds. They're sponges everywhere they go. And so, you can find times when you're driving in the car, we spell out words from signs. When we are out at the beach, we look for different kinds of rock formations, or we throw rocks in the ocean or coral in the ocean, and we count and do math with them. It doesn't have to be seated in a desk. And that's one thing I want you to really think about. You're not recreating school. Like, don't fall in that trap, because you won't be able to do it. You won't have the resources. You won't have the prior knowledge to do that. You don't need to create a room and you're filled with like all these posters and like a schedule from this to this. You saw the form I put up. Kids are really only learning in chunks of 10 to 15 minutes with direct instruction, which means you're talking to them, you're sharing with them, you're guiding them, you're presenting. And then after that, they're practicing or exploring or investigating. And so you are not sitting there doing each subject, each second, all through the day. Because also in school, there's specials and there's recess and there's lunch and there are things that you aren't going to be dealing with in the sphere of your home, right? You're going to have more flexibility with things like health enhancement, and stuff can come in the form of swimming, can come in the form of taking a walk or a hike with your family, or biking, or these things. It doesn't have to be in a setting at your house, okay? So I want you to not fall into those traps and to compare other people's either, because my homeschool is going to look very different from yours, and that's okay. It has to work for your kids and for your family dynamics. But you don't have to go Monday through Friday. Like, that's like, all these things are out now. You can go on the weekends. I don't know anybody that has a play date at 7:30 a.m. on a weekend. If your kids are up, you can use that time, if that works best for you, if you're working, to do some science experiments together, to bake together. You have to think outside the box and not just be coloring inside the lines, okay? So also, you're not going to be in the rat race. Our house is not a rat race in the morning to put breakfast on, make lunches, get dressed. Sometimes we do school all day in our pajamas, and then we change at noon for lunch, and that's okay. But you're not taking that course from 6 till 7:30, and then the driving time. You have 2-hour block in the morning. So if you are a parent that's starting work and you can get up a little bit early to get ready, you can do some teaching in that blocks in the morning when they're fresh. You don't have homework at night. You no longer are a slave to sitting down with your child and doing that because you're going to know exactly where they are. For example, yesterday we did a lesson where Jonas had to buy like an entree. We went on and found the things he liked and a drink and a fruit or a side, and then he had to figure out if he had enough money and all these things. And it was a struggle because it's like counting out the money and then adding up and regrouping and all these things. And so we did it a couple times and there was some frustration. So we're going to revisit today. We didn't have to just like move on. We get to revisit it. We get to practice it again. But I didn't send him home with a worksheet because I know once he's mastered it, I check the box that I'm aware of that. And when you are in a class like I've been, you don't get to be aware of that all the time. You have to move on to meet everybody's learning. But in this case, you get to meet your child or children or how many learning. You can set up, what I do is I work with Hazel. Well, Jonas is doing some independent learning, and then I swap back and forth. And then because he's a really strong reader, if I need to work with Hazel more, I have him go to independent reading or go write a story for me. So you get creative with your time. But you don't have that block at night. It might be that you reframe your days that at night is like a family hour to help you clean the house, okay? Because this is going to be important, and you'll see that in the next steps. Also, you can take field trips. You can do whatever you choose for a break. Like we take dance breaks too in the day. We go out for walks. We start our day with a walk and we still talk it out and learn during that. So there's a lot of ways for you to figure your blocks. If you want some extra help, that's where you could have me be consulting in that and we could touch base one-on-one. So just know that's an option too for me, and I'm willing to work with families to work on that. Number 5 is then once you've picked your curriculum, your scheduling, how are you going to keep track of what your kid's doing? Because that's the next thing. There's all sorts of planners online. There's all sorts of ways to keep track of their progress. I do a portfolio style. If you choose an online program, they're going to provide you with grades, tests, where they're hitting their marks, so you don't have to worry about it as much. You just need to know where to access that and how that works and how to monitor that. But every state requires different things. We have to turn in a portfolio at the end with the letter of what achievements and then provide samples of the work. So I just keep a 3-ring binder. Some people do photo books, which is really cool. I'm going to start doing that also. So the kids have almost like a yearbook from each year of the things they did and great projects and things they're proud of. So I'm not keeping so much paperwork, but I'll have those on file. And then I keep everything like I would taxes for a couple years. So that they have all the things. But then I start getting rid of some of the books. And you also keep a bibliography of all the books and all the materials you have used. And that's really easy to do. I suggest you start it when you get your curriculum. Sometimes I do it at the end of the year and it's such a pain. And I did that this year and then I had to like go back and get all the books because I feel like I'm in a better rhythm now. So it doesn't, at first I was nervous, but now I'm in a rhythm. So I just know. Yes, honey.
I want to wear my professional dress, but I can't find it.
Okay, I'm going to do the rest of this and then I'll help you, okay?
The lipstick is still on.
Yes, okay. So you decide how you want to keep track of that. A lot of schools don't require a report card, but sometimes kids, it's fun to have it. We always do like a celebration when they finish a book. That's the other part that's really great with homeschool. Like when I was teaching, you never finished a book. You just did what you could and hit certain things. But what's really great is you actually finish books and they get everything. And so that's exciting because you don't have any gaps. You're aware of exactly where they're at. Number 6 is finding your team. This and the last 2 I saved for last, so hopefully I didn't lose you, are so important. Okay, you need to have support, friends, family that understand what you're doing and how you're doing it. So you need to get everyone on board. And some places now, because of working parents, you're going to probably have to take aunties and grandparents and involve them in the learning. And I would say how you should involve them in the learning is games and activities and arts and things like that. Don't make the grandparent be a teacher. Have them be a reinforcer of techniques.
I found a chocolate coin.
You found a coin? That's awesome. Okay. Yes. um, and have them take active part in those things. There's so many learning games. There's so many things you can get dominoes and playing. Don't assign them to be a teacher because they're supposed to be the fun, like loving grandma and grandpa, or in our case, Yaya and Papa, but they can certainly be there to connect and to reinforce. Um, and celebrate victories with them on this journey, and be people that they get in front of to share reports and slideshows and things like that with. Also, friends and co ops. So, you might want to choose it's really like trending, as they say right now, as people that are pulling their kids are finding common groups of people that believe in the same patterns, and they're working together to educate and taking turns in a co-op style. The only thing you have to check is making sure that some states like New York does not allow that. Like, it's not, if your child isn't with you primarily, then it's not considered homeschool. So you have to check into those things. There's also umbrella schools that you can register your child under, and they're basically like your homeschool, but you get to still have your kids at home. And a lot of those you have to, there's scholarships for financially and those sorts of things. And that's the other part when picking like curriculum and things like that. Don't feel like you have to spend an exorbitant amount of money. There's a lot of places like Teachers Pay Teachers and sharing programs, and I list all these, so don't freak out, that you can go to. There's one where you can watch Disney movies, and then there's like 8 lessons that cover different curriculum afterwards. So how great is that? If you're in work meetings, they watch the movie, it's not putting them on a device, and then there's activities for weeks to follow from that movie. Or you watch the movie in slices, and then you do the projects. And then even for middle school and high school, there's these units where they're watching great documentaries about things that are relevant to them, and then they're hitting standards below it. So that one is phenomenal, and that's on the stuff that I provide for you. Okay, Mystery of Science is free. There's Time for Learning that's free. Easy Peasy is free. There's some that are paid, like Share My Lessons is free, but also you can pay to have a membership. So there's so many. I mean, it just becomes like, sometimes I buy so much, like I bought so much science right now that I'm like, when am I going to do this all? But it doesn't matter because I can keep using it, right? So I can hit mammals again. I can hit astrology again, because I get also units like that provide differentiated instruction for grade level. And so you can buy curriculum that provides like a junior notebook, like our science, and then an upper elementary notebook. And so Hazel will have the junior one, and Jonas will have the other one. So we're doing the same thing because they're in K and 2. And then they do different work after we do and discuss and share or watch a video or do an experiment. So make sure you have your community, your family, your support group. This also includes hiring, okay? You are going to save a lot of money if you have free resources, if the school's providing resources, and you're not sending all these things out of your house, you're not using gas money, you're not going to put things into new projects, or you have your just a small classroom budget. Then you can hire out. You might hire someone that you need to clean your house. You might look to meals to be prepped, so you can take that time to do some learning and discovery time with your child. You might hire a teacher or a tutor if you're a stay-at-home parent. You might, especially if you were attending a private school or a Montessori and you were paying a lot of money to send them and you're choosing to bring them home, that money can then go into your homeschool funding. So you really need to budget, but you're going to want to get the kids involved. Get the kids, if they're in the older areas, on like online shopping, especially now we're still doing a lot of online shopping and not going to grocery stores, and they can figure out a budget and give them a budget, and they have to shop for you. You have to get creative again, but you want to provide a team. If you hate to do laundry, hire somebody to do your laundry, but do it so that you then have action and time and a place. And also, don't sweat the small stuff, because if my dishes aren't done but we're in a great learning time, the world doesn't stop spinning. And what they're going to remember is that we were in that great learning sphere. They're not going to be like, oh, the dishes weren't done. And my husband doesn't care when he gets home if they're not done, because he knows that we were busy in action. Okay. Then number 7 is patience and love. And patience with yourself and love with yourself first, and then to give. And this one is hard. You probably saw it when we all went to lockdown in the spring. There was chaos. There was probably screaming. There was low patience. Your children are experiencing things none of us understand. We need to be there in patience and love, no matter what model you are sharing with your family. And if they're going back to school, this is the same advice I would give to anyone, that this is such a volatile time and there's so much depression and anxiety happening in our children that this is where we need to step up as the guide, the teacher. Okay, you are going to find a rhythm for your family, but it's not going to happen overnight. Okay, it's no different than anything else. You don't go into something new and it just gels, right? You have to understand your homeschool is not going to work perfectly every day. And it doesn't when they're in the classroom. I was in the classroom for years. There was just crappy days. And that's life. I have crappy days, and that's life. So your kids are too. And the good news about homeschool is when that happens, you can press pause. Today is not the day that things are working, so why force it? Why would we force ourselves in our space to be productive when we're not feeling it? We don't. So why are we forcing our children to do that? That doesn't make any sense. So you can press pause and you can go to some play or puzzle time or reading time, or let's take a hike, or let's walk and talk it out, and then let's revisit it. So you have flexibility. Again, remember, bendable and flexible with time. And so you can have great highs, but then you're going to have great lows, and that's part of life, to celebrate the highs. But we have moments, and we had some frustration. Jonas learning how he works best compared to Hazel, completely different too. And so when you have different children that work under different dynamics, you are going to learn so much more about them, though, and you're going to have such trust and communication, even more than you've had before. So that part is so beautiful. That journey, I cannot tell you how wonderfully connected we feel from being on that journey, both my husband and I, with them in this homeschool experience, the conversations we get to have, and getting to know them even better, because you're going to become a student of them even more, and about how they tick and how they learn and how they grow. So some families it's going to happen faster. Again, this is where we don't compare. And some families it's going to take a while. And you might want to start with one or two subjects, just hitting reading and math, and then letting them explore other things when you get there. Don't put so much stress on yourself. We go to school. Our pattern is 4 days a week. We always have Friday off for fun day. Sometimes if we decide to take press pause on Wednesday, then we go to school Friday, and they know that. So they understand we can press pause, but then we have to revisit it another day or in the afternoon. We usually school in the morning because I know that's when most minds are ready and viable. But you might find out that you have like a little firecracker that also can do some things in the afternoon. And or if we save afternoon for more of the sciences and the experiments and social studies and mapping and those sorts of things. So, that's really learning your flow, and then it might shift. And you might, like, I used to start at 10ish to 12, because then I could get my workout in, and it's like I still am doing stuff for me, and that's part of this love and patience that I'm going to share. But then sometimes I can see they're ready to go, so now I need to be more flexible. So I was like, okay, we're going to start, we're going to 8 to 10, and then I'll get a workout, and then maybe we'll take a walk together. And so you might swap it around. It doesn't have to be so concrete, but you might have a kid that is. So if that's the case, then you can schedule block them, and you can give them their own stations. Like Teachers Pay Teachers, you can get Writer's Workshop, and it gives you all the little folders that you can make as your family, and you can be like, okay, this child needs this. At 8 a.m., they need something to be doing, and they need scheduled. My other one doesn't. And you get them on a schedule. So you have to be flexible for sure. But for those first couple weeks when it's all new, consider, theme days, crazy hair day, pajama day, or going on, just randomly surprise them with a field trip day. And so they're excited about it and about the transition. And then get ready to work on relationships with yourself and with them, and make sure you're finding time for you. That's the thing that I think is the hardest for all, even stay-home moms or homeschool dads, is finding space. But that's also part of the training. My kids now know that that's my time. I need that time. So I actively take an hour to go work out on my own in the morning, and then in the afternoon I actively take a time to what I call professional development of myself, whether it be meditation or reading or, listening to a podcast. And they know those are my spaces. And yes, like, Hazel can come into this space. She knows I'm working right now. It's not like it's a closed door space, but they understand and respect that. But they've learned that from a very young age. And setting those boundaries are really important for yourself too, as their guide and educator. So I'm going to just go through the 7 really quick again. The laws, number 1, how to inform the school. Number 2, which curriculum then suits your family and fits your family. 4, how to schedule block it and what works, and that you can be flexible and bendable. Really important. 5, what kind of portfolio and testing options you're going to have. Again, with testing, I forgot to tell you, you can have them test in their school. That's available to you, and don't let a school tell you it's not, so they can go in and sit with their peers and test if you so choose, or you can provide the test. And there's a ton of different testing centers, and I'm not going to get into that because that's something you could contact me individually. What your team is, and then patience and love to do this. And then, you may decide to do this for a semester, some of you, and then you may get through that semester and be like, well, I'm not going back. Or you may be like, this wasn't for me. But I encourage you, no matter what course, if you're going to keep them home, that you make this exciting for you. You make it exciting for them. And you don't make this, oh, it's our only option. You make it, this is our option. Different, very different framing in the mind. Okay, this is the best option for us, not this is our only option. Okay. And I think that's really important. And then I also just want to encourage you, reach out to me. I have been hired by families to help them set this up. I'm willing to do that. I'm also willing to, like this, provide a lot of, free stuff. It's not here to make money. I just, if I put a lot of time into helping you, obviously, I'm taking away from my family. But for the most part, if there's just some questions and things, if there's some questions right now, throw them out to me. I don't know if I can see any or if anyone has been on. Maybe I can check on my phone. And you can type those in and I'll answer while I'm on. If not, you can put it in the replay, and you can put a lot of time into helping you. Sorry, obviously, I'm getting on there. I'm taking away from my family, but for them, I'll check on my phone. I think what I'll do, because it's distracting and I can't see those, is that I'll just answer them afterwards in your comments. I thank you so much for your time. Again, I'm learning as I do this. I'm excited. I have a lot of, depth in it, teaching other families from 2nd grade into middle school, and now my own child for 2 years, and Hazel's just starting. She did a little bit of pre-K, but I didn't push it because she was just exploring and playing, and that's what I want, and we got to remember to play both as adults, and that's how our brain functions to grow, and to realize you're not going to screw your kid up. Okay, you didn't screw them up so far before you send them to kindergarten. You won't screw this up, especially in those early years. All you could do is provide love. All you could do is provide knowledge, and be really careful that you're not just instructing and lecturing, but that you're sharing in it. I have learned so much. My son has so much knowledge on dinosaurs. I didn't care about dinosaurs, but wow, when I see him light up and tell me every fact, how awesome. So, make sure that you're not trying to do that, because that's part of why I left formal education, is that I didn't want to be a feeder of knowledge. I wanted to be a grower. I wanted to be someone that taught people inquisitive skills and higher thinking skills. And I felt like I couldn't do that when I was stuck to a standard or to teaching to a test. And so I encourage you to think outside the box. I encourage you to get that support team and to give yourself patience and love. And I'm not going to take any more of your time, but thank you so much. Be sure to ask questions. I might do a question and answer session again next week. DM me, whatever it takes, but I'm here to help. And just, again, reframe your thinking. This isn't forced. This is taking your own power back. This is making an informed decision and doing the best thing for your family. Okay, have a great day.